10 years ago, I was coming into a phase where I was now understanding that vegan wasn't the pinnacle of all diets, because I was vegan for some time and I was treating clients and I was wondering what the hell was going on and why everyone was tired and failing and not improving their health whatsoever by being on this amazing so-called plant-based diet. So yeah, that was a huge turning point for me, especially with observation with my clients. So I was lecturing at the time as well. I was lecturing with this huge belly, walking upstairs and trying to chat to my students about maybe why we shouldn't be being vegan anymore, and telling our clients, and trying to teach them that meat is medicine. I think it was, I went traveling and I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to have some brisket, dive into some brisket.
That's awesome.
And I was never turning back after that.
So
but funny
brisket
enough,
was what broke you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it.
Brisket
Okay.
broke
I
me.
mean, if there's good brisket, I mean, come on.
Oh,
if Boomer was eating, Boomer was making
good.
it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It would be pretty good brisket. Yeah. Did you say let me clear my throat?
Yeah, you did.
One time.
Yeah, how does a podcaster clear their throat, Scott?
On mute, man. On mute.
Yeah.
When I say freeze, you're gonna freeze one time. When I say freeze, you're gonna stop on a dime.
Do you have like a prep before you go into these, these podcasts? Like go through all the vocal tones?
You have to have water and the mute button on the ready. But let's have Jodi. How you doing? Corral us.
That was such a weak segue.
Wow.
Help me.
That was not even an intro. We haven't even gotten there yet.
Usually you're really good at segues, but that one I'll give you a D-.
Yeah, no, that was. I used to be
summa cum laude. That wasn't summa cum laude.
No, it wasn't.
Well, we are here to give 1 cent solutions to $64,000 throat clearing questions. We are here with the whole team today. This is very exciting. Dr. Jup has joined us. We hardly ever get all of us together on one little podcast. This is very exciting. And we are talking about the history of all of us before we knew each other, which is very exciting also. And what we believed 10 years ago and what has changed. And so we are going to be discussing some fun topics, I believe, today. It's going to be good. Who wants to go first?
Anybody?
I can go.
So let's let Dr. Tag go first.
Yeah, go
10
ahead,
years
Tag.
ago was 2015. Let's set the stage here.
2015.
And this all hinges on what we do in HOMeHOPE now, which is to do metabolomics testing. Okay. And this is what I've been railing about since before. We come up with all of these studies, but we actually never measure the levels of this particular metabolites. So I'm just going to mention several things that we measure that are, in consumer media, they believe this, but we at HOMeHOPE, are actually say, no, we got to measure this. So the first thing that they said before was, saturated fat is automatically atherogenic. That's fucked up, right? Measure your saturated fats and see whether or not you actually have a problem with your saturated fats. Those can be measured now. The second one is fish oil for everyone. And, and this is the reason why you have so many patients now with very, very high omega-3s and actually very low omega-6. Measure it. The third is that, it's okay to have high dose antioxidant supplements. And, and the study that they did was on vitamin E greater than 400 IU a day, increases lung cancer and incidence of smokers taking beta-carotene. That's very often cited. We, of course, measure our antioxidants, right? And we know that there's a phenomenon called antioxidant induced stress. So when you take too much antioxidants without actually measuring what you need, you can actually induce stress. The other thing that we believed 10 years ago is vitamin D megadosing. Like, what the fuck? You can measure vitamin D so easily, right? So these are the kinds of things that you can actually, see how these changes within 10 years all have to do with just one simple unifying factor that could have saved us, time and trouble for, believing all of these things. Just measure these things. If you need them, give them. If you don't. Right. So, and that is very relevant, again, as I said, in health optimization, medicine and practice. We guess, we test, we don't guess your values, and then we shift your ratios, and we correct by the network, not by the individual values, because illness medicine has a silver bullet type. This was the one thing that I can change. No, if you change one thing in a network, you will change the rest. So why not take a look at their values in a network? It's possible to do that now, and then do the supplementation as necessary. So serious for the opening.
So serious.
I'm just jotting down I'm jotting down all the nonsense I did like 10 years ago. So you guys need to go first. So it'll take me a moment.
So you can
We
get that.
need some humor here, though, Boomer. You got some nonsense, but
But please keep
I
going.
can tell you
and then-
about some nonsense Boomer did for me. 10 years ago, I still believed like in genetic testing way more. And some
That
random
wasn't 10
guy.
years ago.
Was
that
that
wasn't
not?
10 years ago. No,
Yeah.
sorry. You have to go
It
back
was
to your
50.
Pokemon days.
Okay. Well, Charizard's the best.
Yeah.
But that's still true
But
now.
you can,
That's
no
still
go
true now.
go to the but tell your story about the genetics test, because that it's worth talking about.
That's actually how I met Boomer. So I think my brother met him at a cryptocurrency conference, and Boomer persuaded him to get me and him to do genetic testing, so you could like manage your diet and exercise
Nice.
and based on all these genes, which then I thought was awesome. But now, of course, we know better, and it's much more an epigenetic story. But I think that's a big shift we made the last 10 years.
I think that's actually true. Yup. And
Yeah.
I think 10 years ago, we really did think that we were going to have all of our answers just by understanding the genetic code. That was like the big thing at the turn of the century. I know, Ted, you've spoken about this before, like the whole we knew the whole genome. We know every single sequence. We're going to fix every disease by just knowing the genome. And I think that was kind of at the end of understanding that truly was happening, or that could even be possible. So, and Boomer was just a little bit behind the times, and that was what he was focused on DNA.
Was I behind the times or with the times? I don't know. I was surfing around like a wave, and then I realized the wave had some statistical flaws and got off. So
yeah,
You need to
Remember,
live
you
through
could
it to know its flaws.
go and download all your SNPs, right? And then what was it
Mm.
Prometheus was the database, right? And it
that
was
was
Yeah,
the OG database. Now
Yeah.
there's a gazillion of them, and I still
Yeah.
think there's some
Mhm.
utility to
Sure.
some of that information.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
We just, I think genes used to be the destiny, right? But now we know that genes are not the destiny, right? And one of the other major things that I was just thinking about was we used to think that the microbiota was just stuff in our gut that we needed to kill off with antibiotics when somebody had any kind of infection, any type of way. And so we had no idea about the science of the microbiota like we do now. And like eating healthy and eating for your gut was like not a thing, right? So, I mean, I remember when a funny story is, I think I was like around 35. This is when the gluten-free thing was getting much more crazed, and not just for celiac, just like people just trying to be healthy. And I was at the time working at a hospital, and every single day at the hospital, they had a beautiful meal, and they always had cookies at the end. And I love cookies, and I just love these cookies. And I was like, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just like not going to eat gluten for 3 months and see how I feel. And actually, I felt fantastic off of gluten. And but I really did miss those cookies that I wasn't eating as much anymore. But
So did your
that was like one of my
microbiota.
first. That was one of my first like major health shifts that I did. Was around that time. I think it was around 2015 or so. Thinking about, okay, I'm going to try to change my health and do something different, other than maybe drinking a lot of coffee with fat in it at the same time, which I know some of you on this call have done too. I met Dave in 2013, just a couple of years before that, and this is the beginning of that craze, the Bulletproof craze. And so I was definitely having my coffee in the morning with a lot of fat and MCT oil, and having lots of floating bowel movements as a result of that. So,
Did you get the
Running to a
constipation
toilet.
or the diarrhea effect?
I got the diarrhea effect, man. Like there's a funny
The
Yiddish,
MCT, man.
there's a funny Yiddish expression called Gai Coffin Offen Yam, which means may you shit on water and make it float. And that's exactly what I was doing on a regular basis. And
Wow.
I love that this is a Yiddish expression.
Wow, that's amazing.
You know
It's one of my
what?
favorites.
You know what, Scott? When I was in Bhutan, they were serving us like coffee with ghee, right? That was the coffee that they're serving. And I said, how is this different from like the bulletproof coffee again? But
That's
anyway,
Or
it was-
yak butter tea. That was
Say,
the
yeah,
OG
yeah,
one, right?
yeah.
What
They
are
should
the
sue Dave.
people in Bhutan ripping off Dave Asprey?
Yeah.
Haven't I heard of
That's right.
Bulletproof?
Stole their ideas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Alan, what were you doing in 2015?
Oh man, I was just thinking like so 2015 I just finished fellowship and so this is an administrative fellowship on ED management and leadership, and so I think the perspective was, wow, like medicine's great, and and there's clearly so much like longevity here for those of us that were new physicians that were excited and ready to actually help people get healthy. And so it just kind of brought me back to a time where we had this sort of naive optimism about what the system was, what it was actually doing, right, and our role in it. And so you have a lot of really smart and driven people that want to do good out there, and ultimately the system just does not allow people to do that, right? It's sick here, and so you can't really get people healthy. But I think, along the same time, I remember doing night shifts and eating terrible. Or I do the same thing with like the cafeteria cookies. And I'm like, I need to like detox, And the only thing I knew was like, okay, go drink like those, those smoothies, like the naked juice smoothies,
Yeah,
right? They're
I used
just
to drink those.
full of sugar, right? They're like
So-
terrible for you. I'd be like,
Oh, yeah.
let me pound 3 of these things. And I'm going to detox and be super healthy. And I
Oh,
would
God.
feel like horrible after them. And I'm like, this is,
Time phase.
and I guess
Oh, the
like,
juice smoothie. Oh, that was
Oh.
totally 2015 for me.
right?
I was totally on the juice smoothie still.
There was
Wow.
like,
Did you have reindeer antlers, or was this sort
No,
of
this is definitely
non-Erewhon?
pre reindeer
This is
antler. This is
pre-Erewhon.
this is like the naked juices like you're talking
Yeah.
about. I used to have
Okay.
those.
you
all
know what
the
I'm talking
time
about?
at the
Those-
hospital. Oh yeah, it was my
And they-
breakfast. I used to have it for breakfast.
yeah, breakfast. I'd have one for
Who
each
doesn't
like
have it for-
meal, thinking I'm like doing really good for myself. And if we look now, what the concept of like what detox entails, right? Especially from like the HOMeHOPE lens, it's like, oh no, this is the farthest thing away from like a juice cleanse, unless it's maybe a celery juice. I don't know. It's like the farthest thing away from actual detox. And so
Yeah.
we think about now like, okay, what you need B vitamins, you need flavonoids, you need glutathione, right? And we need this complex system of recycling homocysteine, and there's all this sophistication within it that like we didn't there was like completely unaware of, right? I'm thinking I'm doing good here and I'm really just bumping up my A1C. So
Yeah, and you have to focus now on remembering what you were taught in medical school about how
yeah, that-
detoxification in the liver actually happens, right?
Oh, yeah.
There are stages of detoxification, which is like now you can see advertisements for helps in the this and the that phase, and and that is one of the things that we emphasize. For example, we have a gut module, right, where and an exposomics module, for your total exposure, which shows how the liver detoxifies. So we've I think more recently become more practical in terms of the application of the things that we learned in biochemistry, right?
I guess that was another thing, Ted, is I was also very excited to never have to revisit biochemistry. I was like, thank God I'm an ER doctor. I got basic stuff. All that basic sciences I can just forget, and now I'm right back to
basics.
Yeah.
Jodi,
Right.
I want to hear from you.
Oh, me. Okay. Well, 10 years ago, I was actually pregnant with my second, so that was an interesting time.
Did you like to be pregnant? Were you like one of those women that loved to be pregnant, or one of those people that didn't like? One was women that didn't like to be pregnant.
I really love being pregnant. I
Did
would
you?
be
Okay.
pregnant again if I didn't have to then put up with the sleepless
Okay.
nights and the shitty nappies. And yeah, I really enjoyed being pregnant.
The
but-
whinging. I love that Australian word. It's so good. Whinging is such
Whinging.
I need to use that more.
Can we translate that for most of the audience? What is
Whining.
Oh, whining. Okay, gotcha.
It's the greatest. I need to bring that back. I learned it when I was in Australia way back, but
I forget what is cross language or not. But so much whinging. But so 10 years ago, I was coming into a phase where I was now understanding that vegan wasn't the pinnacle of all diets, because I was vegan for some time and I was treating clients and I was wondering what the hell was going on and why everyone was tired and failing and starting to get, not improving their health whatsoever by being on this amazing so-called plant-based diet. So that was a huge turning point for me, especially with observation with my clients. So I was lecturing at the time as well. I was lecturing with this huge belly, walking upstairs and trying to chat to my students about maybe why we shouldn't be being vegan anymore, and telling our clients, and trying to teach them that meat is medicine. But the main parts of that I found was the essential fatty acids, so that's sort of like the key shifts for me was understanding, obviously, more of the biochemistry surrounding it. So I was diving in a lot deeper, and hence why I found HOMeHOPE, in that now we know why we need to be eating a much broader and having a testing and an understanding of what is required in our cells. So the conversion of ALA, that was a myth that was told to the vegan story quite a lot. The other component that I noticed was more of the taurine and the magnesium link. So, knowing that magnesium homeostasis and taurine's involved in that, and then, regulating that intracellular magnesium transport and sort of coming to terms with that. And so that was a huge, big flag in the sand for me. And then vitamin A and a lot of my deep work and research into iron metabolism. So there was a lot of the vitamin A piece and iron, obviously the heme and non-heme is a huge component of that. It was a fascinating time. So I started to, I think it was, I went traveling and I was like, you know what? I feel like some, I think it was brisket. And I was like, I'm going to have some brisket. Dive into some brisket.
That's awesome.
And I was never turning back after that.
So brisket was what broke you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it.
Brisket broke me.
If there's good brisket, come on.
Oh,
if Boomer was eating it, Boomer was
so
making
good. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It would be pretty good brisket.
Yeah. But separate to vegan, it was actually probiotics as well. I used to always believe that, well, not always, but we were told that the probiotics would heal everything. It would be able to get into the gut and off it goes. It was going to do our work. And so time to realize that now it's just this transient, they're more about signaling. It's not about colonization, and we need a multitude of factors to actually support the gut. So the gut immune module, get to it. Very important.
How long were you vegan for, Jodi, overall?
Oh, I did the wildest things. I lived in London and I was raw vegan.
Raw?
And
Not
I was
easy to
raw
do.
vegan
For you.
for...
Were you a David Wolf fan?
I was.
Okay.
Yes, I was.
I get that tracks. Okay.
I partied with David Wolf in cacao parties back in the day.
Oh.
That was fun. A good friend of mine, Damien Donahue, is actually really good friends with David, so we ended up seeing him quite a bit. But yeah, I did raw vegan, and I was doing a lot of this cleansing. It was just like detox, cleanse. So it was bentonite clay in the morning was my first drink. Wow. And then I would wait 2 hours. Then I would eat dates and nuts. And then I would make myself some non-cooked food that was vegan. It was the ingenuity of a human to create something and to go along with a theme and to 100%. I give myself that, but it's not always. My husband, he shrunk down to about 40 kilos less in that time period. Yeah. So yeah, that was a rebound after that one. Yeah. So I was vegan in total, I think about 6 years actually.
Wow.
I tried once, Jodi. I was vegan for like 6 days. It didn't.
Yeah. Was
It
that
didn't.
after the Game Changers
Yeah,
documentary? Yeah.
I think, and I don't even know if I told you this before, but like Bessie and I tried it for a few days, and I think after a few days, I actually put on weight going vegan, and couldn't figure it out for the life of me, and also
Carbohydrate.
just didn't feel great. So bring back the meat.
Same. Took me a week to
Yeah.
stop it again.
I think I went to someone's house that was vegan, and they opened up like a bag of Lay's potato chips, and I was like, "We're eating that."
Or
So
if you really want to screw with them and they're drinking wine, you can talk to them like malolactic fermentation and all that stuff.
Save the yeast.
oh, mead.
What is
Yeah, it
malolactic
was
fermentation? What is it?
you can use, I think I can't remember his lactase or whatever the
use it.
enzyme
Yeah.
is.
Like
They
enzyme,
use
yeah.
it for fermenting, and it's technically not vegan.
Gotcha.
So if somebody's listening to this and wants to get upset with me, that's okay.
I was remembering
That's his aim.
actually in 2015, I did my first 3-day fast that year too.
Wow,
I
you're
did
so
my-
trendy.
I know, I really was. I really was. This is
Oh.
when I started getting trendy. Before it was cool to be trendy. I don't know. Before I didn't even know Instagram existed at that point in my life, by the way. So
Now look at
don't
you
think it
now.
did,
Look at you now.
I know how difference of 10 years makes. But yeah, I remember actually really enjoying it. For some reason, my family wasn't there, and that's very unusual at that point. I would have had like 3 kids probably in 2015, I think. Yeah. No, you weren't.
They're all
No,
shouting
they're all
at
there.
you right
My
now.
daughter was shouting at me. But anyway,
in
so
almost have a
2015, I
live
could have
audience.
recorded a
Yeah.
podcast without interruption.
Exactly. Yeah, that's not going to happen anymore. But yeah, I did the 3-day fast. I remember it being really difficult the first 48 hours, but then like that 72, that third day was just like, it was almost transformative in some ways. It was kind of like a spiritual experience, for me, because I didn't even know what that kind of experience could be, having this clarity. And I was like, wow, this is very cool. So I ended up doing them at that point, like every quarter for a year or two before I stopped as much. So
you guys are all giving me so many reminders of what it was like to be me 10 years ago. So
let's hear it, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Can I start with the positives first? So
Positive, negative.
So 2015 was the year that I guess I started investing more in health, other than having an annual physical. So prior to that, I did the whole working out thing, but the objective was more about just looking good naked, to be fair. So my annual physical in 2015, I always started with the doctor asking me, like, how much alcohol do you drink? And even in 2015, the answer was just sort of like, do you really want to know? But I was strict paleo and keto for 3/4 of the day. And my body fat actually measured via DEXA at 11%, which was shocking given all the other stuff I'm about to tell you. Where to start? So, okay, we'll start with the call. We'll start with I'm going to have a therapy session, guys. Give me a second. I'm going to start breaking down. All right. So
Tell us when it all began.
Great.
So at this point in my life, I was living in Singapore. I was on a plane at least twice a week and never in the same time zone for more than 3 days. I was sleeping 4 to 6 hours a night. Again, traveling all over the world. At this point, I was in Europe once a month. I was in the United States 5-6 times a year, and then various parts of Southeast Asia. My daily regimen started with 1 liter of butter coffee with MCT oil. Now, why was this a good idea? Of course, because I wanted to be trendy and do the intermittent fasting thing, but thought that having a liter of Bulletproof coffee would make me fast as well. The problem with doing 1 liter of Bulletproof coffee is that at that time I was also doing CrossFit, nearly competitive athlete in CrossFit 6 times a week. I remember this is sort of a 2015 highlight. There's an exercise or a workout called Fran, where you do 21, 15, 9 of pull-ups and what's called a thruster. A thruster is a squat with a barbell and you push overhead when you go up. And I had just had that liter of Bulletproof coffee right before doing Fran. Fran at that point would take me sub 4 minutes to do. I ended up bailing on the workout because in the middle of it, I had to go to the bathroom, right? It turns out that this squat thrust movement is very conducive to also bowel movements. So and projectile vomiting.
One rep
So
colonics. Yeah, here we go.
yeah, exactly.
Round two.
Yeah, this is before I even knew what a colonic was. So around this time, also on the positive side, I was starting to invest more time in health. I actually knew what a DEXA scan was. I was going and doing all of these quantified self experiments. This is actually around the time I met Bob Troya, of all people, and started
Shout out
playing
to Bob.
around with.
Yeah.
There's like this esoteric quantified self forum where like people would post what they were doing, and then all of us would comment on it. And me just sitting there, I would try most of these things. But I had probably a bona fide drinking problem. I was going out 4 or 5 times a week, entertaining people. At this time, I did also decide that I'm glad you went ahead with that intermittent fasting point, Scott, because at this time, I decided that my stress was actually through the roof, and that in order to make it better, I would do intermittent fasting. Which, by the way, for anybody listening to this, like the thing that you can do to fuck yourself up big time is that if you're stressed out of your mind, go ahead and intermittent fast. And so around this time, I also had like 3 or 4 panic attacks just because of doing stupid shit like this. So sleeping 4 to 6 hours a night, traveling all the time, CrossFit 6 times a week. I was actually a pretty good athlete still at that time. And, sort of strict keto paleo 3/4 of the day, quantified self experiments. And then on top of that, I thought, because I heard this famous podcaster say that he was taking high dose selenium and it made him feel great, that I was going to take high dose selenium too, with zero reason for taking high dose selenium, right? So I think I took something like 600 micrograms a day, which is sort of 3 times what you probably want to take, for a while. And I don't know, luckily, when I finally did a heavy metals test a number of years later, it didn't really screw with me that much. But you asked a simple question, Jodi, at the beginning, which was like, what did you do 10 years ago? And let me just actually read the actual question because it was kind of funny. The topic would be things we believed 10 years ago and what's changed. So what's changed? I look at this and say, why did I think any of this shit was a good idea? And that's really where I sit, right? Because, well, I know you guys like to think I'm a coffee fiend, but even then I stopped drinking coffee by 2 p.m. But I was drinking consuming a ton of butter coffee. And yeah, that was sort of a breakthrough year for me. It doesn't sound like it, but by the end of it, it became somewhat of a breakthrough year.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was trying all your shit except for the vegan thing. I couldn't do that.
Selenium's such an interesting one.
Yeah, it was a very famous podcaster. He's still sort of top 10 podcaster out there. He was claiming that selenium made him feel like he was on cocaine. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. I've never done cocaine. For the record, I've never done cocaine in my life. And I don't know now, just knowing a little bit more about biochemistry, I don't know how that would happen. But
probably not a good thing for your biochemistry is my guess.
No.
I wonder, does he just open up the selenium and just like do a line of it or something? Is that
there was definitely an affiliate commission connected. So at this point, by the way, I was learning a little bit more. I didn't know as much as I know about the world of marketing now, is that all of these people got paid affiliate commissions for the things that they recommended. So I'd stack up with like all these fucking racetams all over the place and like just a bunch of things that I didn't know how to do. I did. Okay. The dismount to 2015, I did discover one of my favorite nootropics of all time, which is modafinil. And that was because my poor doctor thought that jet lag was equivalent to shift work, and so therefore was able to prescribe it for me. So yeah, there were some positives, there were some negatives, but overall, guys, I made it through and, learned a lot about my body in the process.
Guys, remember that in 2015, you guys remember this, the vogue was frequent small feedings for meals. Remember that?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, eat like a diabetic. We have
Like
frequent
this
small
type,
feedings,
yeah.
etc., etc., etc. And actually, what had happened was that you were spiking your insulin all the time. So, and then when intermittent fasting was introduced, I actually introduced a different type of intermittent fasting, which is just time restricted feeding. Right? I wanted my patients to be able to remember, not the days in the week that they're going to be fasted, but rather the hours of the day that they were going to be fed. So I called it the feeding window. right? Because time restricted means feeding means like, oh my God, that's so deprivatory of the eating experience, right?
So
So
smart.
I wanted to be able to tell my patients, okay, can you, because the one thing that they they were asking me about frequent small feedings, all of that, and then I said, it all started with the mitochondria, right? That mitochondrial biogenesis occurs after 12 hours of fasting. So that's where I started, because the patients would actually say, I can't change the way I eat, right, immediately, but I can change the time that I eat. And that's a very good handle to begin, restricting your feeding window, right? The first 12 hours, and then and then 10 hours, and then finally an 8-hour feeding window. And it has been, for me, in my travels, it has been my saving grace, right? I would probably be a blimp right now if I didn't follow my feeding window restriction of 8 hours. And it's a one single thing in the, aside from sleep, of course. One single thing that I follow is my feeding window, and you know, and that was coming from a time when, like, hey, it's better to do frequent small feedings. It's like, okay.
Looking back ancestrally, Ted, like, are there any cultures where they're like, we're just gonna like continuously eat through the day instead of
No,
feast and
evolutionarily, they're
famine?
none. Yeah, they
First, you
do.
have to find the food.
Yeah, you find it.
That's what they wrote about the Pima Indians in Arizona. That's why 90% of them are diabetic, right? Uh, Before the introduction of the Western diet and availability of food 24/7, they were used to feast and famine, because that's how the environment was. Either they were feasting all the time, and then they would go through periods of prolonged famine where they would actually shed their fat, and then they would feast again. But then when 24/7 eating came about, then you saw the diabetes rates actually rising, and so on. And that's very well documented, right? And you know because there was so much to do aside from eat. you know uh you know, first you have to gather your own food. So that there was really none of that kind of gorging, except when your culture is actually a feast famine type of culture. So anyway.
All right. I think it's time to dismount, Jodi.
So we've had some very interesting. We've had Pokemon, we've had bench presses and diarrhea. We
Thrusters.
Yiddish expressions.
Sorry. We've had juice cleanses, which, by the way, I did a 20-day juice smoothie cleanse when I was in naturopathic school, and I almost gave myself diabetes. I swear I did.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what your blood sugar was. Did they do before and after blood sugar on those?
I should have. I didn't. That would have been very dangerous, but it didn't feel good. Anyway, so we have explored quite a lot today. So thank you all for listening. I think it's nice to reflect back on the last 10 years, and especially because HOMeHOPE had its birth almost around that time. It's been actually a bit longer, but it's been
2009.
over 10 years. Yeah, over 10 years of experimentation and foundation, and now teaching the next up and coming incredible practitioners and doctors. So we couldn't be prouder. And I'm sure, Dr. Ted, you couldn't be prouder either, what we've achieved so far.
Yeah. Well, all these years of frustration and teaching physicians and healthcare practitioners, and then suddenly it's like everything that you were teaching, in 2009, it's finally here. Finally believe you.
Yeah, exactly. It's all caught up. It's funny how fast things can move over 10 years plus. So it's a nice look back. So thank you all for being here, the team, back together on the podcast. And until next time, we will see you with our next funny episode.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.